The town of Farmington. Respecting history, planning the future.
I'd like to call the Farmington Town Council meeting to order and ask everyone to join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Tonight we have no presentations or recognitions, no public hearing, any new items, public comments. And if you'd like to address the council, please come up to the podium and state your name and address, except if you're a student, we don't want your address. And also, you have 5 minutes to speak. So please come to the podium if you'd like to speak.
Good evening, everyone. Brian Hendrickson, 165 Main Street, Farmington, Connecticut. I wasn't planning on speaking to you this evening. However, since last I addressed the council, we lost our beloved family dog, Simba, to an accident on Main Street in front of our house. This occurred on June 28th while our family was on vacation. Simba got away from our dog walker and was immediately struck by a speeding car on Main Street that did not stop. It was a hit and run. I would like to thank the Officer Bellissimo from the Farmington Police Department who handled the situation with outstanding professionalism and grace as our family was on vacation. Again, I can't thank Officer Bellissimo enough for his service. It was outstanding to know that there are dedicated professional police officers who are very kind that are serving the residents of Farmington. As you can imagine, the loss of our family dog Simba has been difficult and underscores the need to look into ways to improve safety on Main Street. Although there are added risks of living on a main road, as we previously discussed, living on a main road in the historic Farmington Village that contains a school and a densely populated residential area also comes with the expectation that all avenues to increase safety will be explored by the council as well as the town manager. Also, while on vacation, I read an article in a Hartford Current about the work the Glastonbury Town Council and the town manager did to creatively and cost-effectively collaborate with the state DOT to narrow the travel lane and increase the shoulder with restriping on Route 17. This is very cost-effective and innovative. The cost is simply paint of the striping. And I encourage the council and the town manager to seriously look into this. There is still time to act as the striping has not been done in the village. And I strongly encourage you to reach out and call the DOT, which is completely within reason, as the striping has not been done. You still have time to act. Finally, I see on the agenda for future business the formation of the Farmington Village Center Committee. I encourage you to include the full historic village footprint as well as a stretch of Main Street down to CVS, as there are several pedestrians on a daily basis that walk down to CVS and don't have a sidewalk to walk on. Again, as we discussed, the apartments across from Highland Park Market, there's a clearly marked crosswalk and there is nothing to cross over to. And again, seem to be accidents waiting to happen on a daily basis. I encourage you to look into this very seriously and take action before further accidents occur. Those are my comments for this evening. Again, I wasn't planning on coming to speak with you. I have a copy of the article. I will email each member of the council this evening to share the article. I encourage you also to reach out to your colleagues in Glastonbury to discuss how there's better ways to collaborate with the DOT. Again, this is the cost of paint, not widening sidewalks. It's just the cost of paint and striping. Thank you for your time. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. Robert Parker, 22 Tanglewood Road. My comments tonight kind of follow the previous speakers to some regards. I'm here to comment tonight on Farmington Center and the plan and the design of it. And first of all, I want to stick with the positives of it first. It's beautiful. It looks fantastic. Heading eastbound out of town is an absolute dream. It used to take me 45 minutes to get to IAR when I had to drive my son into school. Unfortunately, he just graduated, so I won't have that pleasure anymore, but it now only takes 15 minutes. The negative is the westbound traffic is just a complete disaster. It has made the traffic situation worse. If I was a business owner on Route 4 and any of those plazas, any of those restaurants, you bet I'd be here right now, because you cannot get into town anymore after 4 o'clock. Even after 3:30. It now requires, in fact, I'm in sales, my territory is the southern part of the state. I travel 15 miles further to get home 20 minutes sooner, okay? I now travel the Route 8 corridor, go through Waterbury, that's correct, through Waterbury, and come in through 118 and Route 4 in Farmington to avoid Farmington traffic. Now, I know we only had 2 weeks before school was let out, so it was really difficult to gauge the measure of traffic. I think once everybody gets back from vacation and school is in center, we are in for disaster on our hands. Just the way that it's lined, if you're exiting onto High Street, left onto Route 4 westbound, the cars turn right in order to turn left. And they back up Route 4 even further into the intersection. The same thing coming out of Garden Street. It's a nightmare. Each light cycle, you can only get 4 or 5 cars through. You used to be able to get 8 or 9. The cars turn right so they can get through the light and back up Route 4 even further. Again, I'm in the sales world. Every salesman that I come in contact with is avoid Farmington, even after this project is done. That's not good for business, everyone. I think the problem with Route 4 can be very easily fixed, again, with some line painting. There needs to be 2 lanes of traffic going westbound through town, and it can be very easily done. That island needs to go. It will not last 1 winter in this state. The snowplow drivers from the state will take that thing out there in the first snowstorm. Very simple solutions. Also, a couple things that I noticed, the signposts on the sidewalk are not ADA compliant. You cannot get a wheelchair through there, folks. I don't know whoever with DOT did that. I'm sure that's an easy fix, but that needs to be remedied. Also, Route 4 heading eastbound, once you pass the new Berkshire Bank, and you're heading towards 84, the catch basins are raised 4 to 6 inches. It's like driving over moguls. How is the water ever going to get into these catch basins when during a heavy downstorm? They're not. So that's going to be a concern to be addressed as well. Also, the lights at Route 4 and Route 10 Center need to be switched. The southbound Route 10 goes first, which most people cut across to continue on Route 4, take a left towards 84. And then the northbound lanes come second. So all the cars, and now the 2 lanes, which one goes straight, one goes left, all those cars back up to the Garden Street light. So when Route 4 turns green, you can't go anywhere. You're sitting in the middle of the intersection. Again, backing up traffic even more. So I please beg you to contact the DOT and let's work to get this situation fixed before the construction starts in Unionville. Once that intersection at New Britain Avenue and South Main Street start, there's no way to get around through Farmington, folks, and every business owner in town is not going to be a happy camper. There's going to be no way to get in and around Farmington. So I beg you to contact the DOT and work towards a solution. I heard rumors that there was some rule about you can't have 4 lanes in the Farmington Center. There's 4 or 5 lanes there now. They just need to be realigned. I took a left from High Street onto Route 4 today, and as you look right, left, down the hill towards the bridge, beautiful road. It just looks fantastic, and there's 1 lane of traffic heading west. That's just not going to work. Also, my question to you is, as I attended meetings many years ago with Mike Clark and Jeff Hogan and Mr. Vibert, there was conversation about a new bridge. before the bridge in Unionville needs to get replaced at Monteith Drive. I was wondering, what is the status of that bridge? What are we looking at in terms of timetables? You know, I know it's a 20-year approval process, but I think it was 10 years ago that we started talking about it. So I'd like to have your thoughts as to what's going on with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments? Okay. The reading of the minutes.
I move to approve the June 12th regular town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any corrections?
Madam,
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
yes. It's on page 5, item 4 at the top, Economic Development Commission Liaison Report. Powerhawk Inc. Powerhawk is one word with an E at the end of hawk.
Can you repeat that for me, please? I don't have it in front of me.
Yes. On page 5, it's the Economic Development Commission Liaison Report. Powerhawk Inc. is the reference to the company. The company is actually Powerhawk as one word, and then there's an E at the end of hawk.
One word with an E.
Yes.
I will tell the clerk.
Thank you.
Anything else? All those in favor with the correction, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. June 26.
I move to approve the June 26th special town council meeting minutes.
Second.
Any corrections or changes? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions. Communications or written appeals? Report of the committees. Yukon, no report at this time. Land acquisition?
Land Acquisition Committee met last month. We continued to review the list of properties that the town is interested in acquiring and evaluating priorities for what the committee will be interested in. And our next meeting will be held July 12th, which is Thursday this week at 5 p.m. in Town Hall.
Thank you. Green efforts.
Green Efforts did not meet in July. The next meeting is scheduled for August 7th at 6:30 here in Town Hall Council Chambers.
Thank you. Ad hoc committee survey.
Yes, so the committee is formed and we had our first meeting June 21st. We scheduled meetings through September. The RFP for a survey consultant has been out and is due on the 16th, which is Monday. And we're working on a matrix to review those responses, and we'll work further on that with the committee when we next meet on July 24th, and that's 7 p.m. in the council chambers. Again, we have meetings scheduled throughout September, and we're on task to have a survey consultant hired by the end of August and have the survey start in the fall.
Thank you. FHS Ad hoc Facility and Financial Committee.
We haven't met yet. Our first meeting will be July 31st. We'll get going from there.
Okay, thank you. Okay, any other committees? Okay, report of the council chair and liaisons. There are a couple things I want to mention and direct to some of the questions. Actually, I was going to talk about anyway. But one is, first of all, the bridge. The strategic plan that we discussed and that this council implemented for the next year and a half does have the bridge in it, and it is one of our goals. We are in the process, or have been in the process, of putting together possible schematics for it, but we are in the process of continuing that effort depending on what the state, as far as finances are concerned, from there. But we do have it on our strategic plan as something that we will address. Secondly, the traffic problem. I did want to mention that tonight anyway. I think a lot of us are hearing from the community on the pros and the cons. We've heard a lot about what's the good going out, and some of the problems and the challenges that have occurred now that it's supposedly done, the road. And at this time, we are not going to change anything, but let it settle and now look at what are the possibilities, what are the changes that should happen, what kinds of things need attention, and how can we make it better serve the community. So that's what we're going to be looking at, I would say, in the next few months. And Kathy, if you want to just address that as well. We have the summer months now with, fortunately, the schools are out, but we are going to be looking at what possibilities, what things can happen that might help the situation, so.
Just a couple of things that I can answer right off the top of my head for Mr. Parker. So one of the things is about the signpost. My understanding that most of them are leaving. They're temporary. So we are aware of that, and there are signs that definitely have to go. Whether they're ADA, they're not, and also they're in the middle of the sidewalk, so that doesn't work. So that's one of the punch list items. My understanding that catch basins are a punch list item too, that has to be addressed. The big thing that we're still working on with the state of Connecticut is the light cycles all over the place. Everything about this project, much of it has to do with the flow of traffic, and the flow of traffic deals with the lights and the cycling of the lights. My understanding, the Garden Street light was completely off. Even it was off before as the project was going, because it was off because you needed a new light of the technology. My understanding that's been recently fixed, and I haven't seen it myself, but I do understand that the lights now match. So when you're coming off Garden Street, the light on Route 4 stays green longer. So now the flow, you don't get stuck in the middle of the traffic. Whether or not that's what it's supposed to be. And so we're still working on the lights. The lights in general are something that we're going to look at, because as you've said, coming into town, about possibly having the east-west light in the afternoon, staying longer green so that the flow of traffic can keep on going. The islands and different things like that. Again, the islands are there to help with the flow of traffic, but I think that people are going to still continue to look at that. I don't think it's as easy of a fix of saying get rid of the islands and you can put a new lane in there. But again, it was only, it was meant to have one lane just because of the width of the traffic. You can have as many lanes. What we do have in the ordinances is about expanding the width of the road. And if you look, that we do have historic buildings, we have parking lots with businesses, we have a green. So there are different things that there's definitely some challenges. But I think one of the things that we've talked about with the state and that we want to work with, and some different things over the summer, that when the traffic is less, is that we have to get the lights working correctly, which I still don't think they are. And then once the technology is there, that you can really do lights at different times. And so in the evenings, you can have the north-south going different. And we're going to work manually with the police department to manually use the lights to see how things work and try to do some things over the summer when the traffic is less. And again, I think we still have to live with the project a little bit and get used to it, and have when people are in and out, and fix some of these different things up. But I still just want to be clear about that the project was never meant to fix the entire traffic problem, and that it has done a lot for going out of town and in the morning, even coming into town. I travel into town. It really has it's not, again, we're in the summer, but it hasn't been too difficult. It's really still coming into town in the evening is very bad, and also on the weekends coming into town is very bad. And so those are the two times, and we're still hopeful that with some lights, changing of the lights and getting the flow just to move, that would again improve the situation. It's not going to solve the situation. And then I think that the council and everyone, we can regroup and look at the whole thing again to see, like we did in Unionville, there may be little things that we can do that maybe we don't create a whole other lane, but we do some striping and some different things that will help us with that problem coming into town. So that's really where we are right now, but we are, again, working with the state. Our first priority, though, is to try to get these lights in sync. So.
Okay, and I know it was important to talk about it because we've all heard from the community and the challenges. So it's important for the community to know that we are listening and we are going to be working with it. Okay, any comments from Board of Ed liaison?
Yes, so graduation was held on June 15th. Beautiful weather this year, so outside and lots of good speakers. The Irving Robbins Middle School has a new principal. The Board of Education appointed recently, Scott Hurwitz, and he comes to us from Glastonbury Public Schools. And the board breaks for summer, so the next meeting is scheduled for August 27th, and that's 7 p.m. in the library at the high school.
Okay, thank you. Chamber,
No comment.
Oh.
No report.
EDC. No report. Farmington Historic,
Nothing to report.
Housing,
We meet again October 10th,
Human Relations,
and they meet again September 26th, and that's the annual meeting at New Horizons Village.
the Library.
That's Edward, I think,
Yeah.
no report, yeah.
Okay. TPZ,
Yeah, just two things that I'll just call out, because I know that the last time we met, I gave an extensive update, but the last meeting, the TPZ made a modification to the ordinance on the marijuana changes, so that has been modified, as well as they made a modification to the Unionville historic, the Unionville Architectural Review, and I think they changed the name to the Architectural Review Committee. And then they made some additional modification. They added some additional members, and that was also voted on as well in the planning and zoning. That's it.
okay, thank you. Unionville Historic District. Unionville Village Improvement, UVIA.
Yes, the UVIA was able to meet in June, and that was, it was a good event, but the UVIA is definitely looking for more volunteers in town. It's the number of people that are attending the meetings are becoming fewer, and they want to continue their efforts of beautification in Unionville and the village, and as well as along the river. They've got some interest in removing some of the invasives, including poison ivy, along the riverfront to make it more attractive and more amenable for habitat and just recreation. They're also working with the town for Unionville movie nights, the first one is Beauty and the Beast on July 20th. It'll be held outside behind Union School. And then there's also Monsters University on July 27th and Space Jam on August 3rd. Finally, as I think I mentioned at one of the previous updates, Unionville Festival is no longer going to be occurring. It's been canceled due to a lack of attendance, but they are working, UVIA is working with the town to coordinate a fall festival for October. The date is still to be determined, but the hope is it'll be a good family day with pumpkins, food trucks, the train that's been at Unionville Fest in the past, and potentially a movie Under the Stars as well. Once that date is finalized, it will be updated on UVIA's website. And I am going to reiterate the request for volunteers, because Tim LeBouthier made a strong request. If anyone is interested in helping out, they could really use some more volunteers to assist with their efforts in town.
Thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
if I could add, students would be very welcome volunteers. So you could certainly contact Mr. LeBouthier to find out
Yes.
about getting involved.
Thank you.
Thank you. WPCA.
Overall, the sewage treatment plant the project's coming along. There was a hiccup a few weeks ago. A few of the pumps weren't working and malfunctioning. Since then, the designer has tracked the issue. They've replaced the malfunct parts, and they appear to be working better. So they're monitoring it, and things are back on track. And like I said, overall, the project is still on track for everything targeted.
Great, thank you. Any other liaison reports? Yes.
The bicycle-friendly Farmington group will be continuing our Wednesday evening rides. Tomorrow we start at 6 p.m. I believe we're leaving from CVS tomorrow evening, but you can go on Facebook page or on our website, Bicycle Friendly Farmington, to find out when we depart.
Thank you. Any other liaisons? Okay, Kathy, Town Manager's Report.
You have the written report in front of you. One of the things that I did want to mention and call out, which was really great news for us, is that the town of Farmington was awarded $800,000 for the Small Cities Grant for, from the Connecticut Department of Housing. The state awarded $10.5 million to 16 communities in Connecticut, and this will go to the general renovations of New Horizons Village. So Nancy Parent, congratulations to her for all her hard work and on applying and receiving this significant grant, so $800,000. You have the sub-ed yearly report that was in your packet. And lastly, I did have some information again about the Farmington Land Trust. As you know, with the conservation easement, the Land Trust was at the last meeting giving us a presentation, and I think that I would like to receive some further direction as whether the town council is interested in granting a conservation easement to the Land Trust, any further information that's needed, or if we are not, what is the pleasure of the town council on this topic. And the other thing I just wanted to mention too is that I will, with Mr. Hendrickson that came in, I will definitely look at the Glastonbury article that he gave me and see if there's something that's similar to Route 17 that we can do and go from there.
Okay, thank you. Before we start talking about the land trust, I just want to mention the parade.
The parade, sure.
This Saturday, and the Firemen's Parade and the festival starts, I believe it's Wednesday night, but Thursday night, fireworks and going on family night. And but this weekend is the parade as well on Saturday, and the carnival for a couple days. So just to let everyone know, it's this weekend. Okay, land trust. Comments? Yes.
Madam Chair. Given the size of the property and the inaccessibility to the road in general, I think this is property that would be difficult for the town to monitor. And I am in favor of giving the land trust a conservation easement that would allow them to assist the town in monitoring the property for the items noted in their proposal, of the use problems, invasives, and other issues that may occur along the property, in particular, and keeping track of things such as fallen trees and other danger items, and making the town aware of those items is useful for town-owned properties. So that way, the town has some method of keeping track of what's going on.
Other comments? Go ahead, Bruce.
Madam Chair, I think I'm open to what Patty is suggesting. I'm just wondering, in one of our conversations before I don't know if Kathy, you had an opportunity to talk to the town attorney to kind of look through the proposed easement, and I'm just thinking in terms of the town, like, is there any, I hate to use the word recourse, but steps that we can take if we do grant them this easement and they're agreeing to do this extra task for the town, on behalf of the town? What, if any, recourse do we have as a council to make sure that they're following through on this? And I don't know if that has been discussed with the town attorney or not.
I did, after I think someone had asked that question, so I did ask our town attorney, just in general concept, not to spend a lot of time of coming up with it, but he said that, yes, we could add something to the conservation easement that would say, something, if the land trust didn't fulfill their obligation, then what could the town do? And we could add things to our easement that would do that. But he and I had just a brief conversation, and something to think about is that I think it's going to be, I don't know, maybe difficult to figure out how you do that, so, coming up what the criteria would be. So if the land trust didn't do something over a 2-year period of time, does that say that then the easement is revoked? And who is the judge and the jury on that? Who makes that determination? So, again, he said that we can do something like that. It can definitely go into an easement. I just think we are going to have to work with the land trust to try to figure out how how we implement it if something doesn't happen, you know? And so, again, I don't think it, you know, it's possible. That's what the attorney said that we could do.
And then in terms of this additional easement, because I know that there's already an easement on it, so this is an additional easement with them kind of helping us maintain the property. What of a benefit to the town by them doing that for us? I don't know if you can quantify it or...
Well, I mean, again, I think that there's definitely a benefit to the town. I mean, there's no question about that, because the town just doesn't have the staffing on all our open spaces to help kind of monitor it and things of that nature. There is some benefit to the town. I mean, and again, the easement is in front of you. You know, we could try, you know, have more of a benefit by having more of an obligation of the easement, that the land trust would have to do more for us. You know, this is really monitoring it and different things of that nature. But the town does struggle with a lot of their open space, and so having eyes on it is definitely going to be, you know, helpful to us.
Thank you.
I guess there are a few things that I want to comment on and the concerns I have with an easement of this nature. One is, we did put together an easement that was kind of a compromise, where we weren't actually giving up our rights as we would be if we enter into this agreement with the land trust. And some of the concerns I have is, one that Bruce brought up, is what happens if there are things that need to be done and we are told they need to be done, but our town staff can't do them. Where are we then? And what happens? And that's a concern to me. I don't know what the level might be of what we need to do. And where do we stand then as far as moving forward with what the land trust might say that we need to do in some of the areas. But one of the main things that I've heard from people out there in the community is that the concern, because Farmington, the people in Farmington bought this property, the state actually gave us back dollars, $500,000 or about that, for a grant for this property. And with that, there is an easement on that where nothing can be done because it's open space. The history and my experience in this town is, and it was brought up when the land trust people were here, was that I've never in my years ever had anything reversed. When the town and people in Farmington have bought something because they've bought it for open space, there's never been anything that has come before the councils that I'm aware of to reverse that process and change open space back to a development. People in Farmington really treasure their open space here, and I think everybody's aware of that. But I think some of the concern I heard out there from people was that they were concerned about the fact that the town of Farmington owns this property with the easement with the state, which already protects it, and that we bought that, the town. And they're concerned about the fact that we have that, the town has that, the town's bought it, and if we're giving up our rights to the land trust, what does that mean for the town? And I think I have heard that from many people out in the town, and what does it mean? The fact that we bought the property, and I think what I'd like to explore and think about is the fact that we could have a partnership with the land trust without an easement of this nature. Why wouldn't we work together to partner with the land trust on any properties in town, this being one, and look more at the easement that we had written up that was I think basically a compromise. So I do have concerns about this, and when people saw this on the agenda, I actually talked to a number of people about this, so I have a concern about it. So those are my thoughts. Yes.
This is a tough one. I'm pretty torn on it. I think Patty kind of hit the nail on the head with a lot of the pros in terms of, town resources and taking care of that land, and this provides a nice way to do that. That being said, I too have heard, like Nancy said, a lot of people in the community that are concerned that we're asking the taxpayers to buy this land. and then we're going to give up control of it to a third-party entity. We do have an easement on it from the state already, so there is some protection there, and there's not a history of that protection being overturned. So I'd be hesitant to go forward with this easement now. This is something we can always do. There's nothing stopping us from doing this if we felt the need for this extra protection down the road. But I would be hesitant to do this today, personally.
CJ?
What is our precedent on this? What easements have we given to the land trust in the past?
We have not given easements to the land trust, but there are land trust easements on property that the town of Farmington owns. My understanding is there's 3 easements that the land trust has easements on our property, but those easements came before the town bought the property or it was part of the purchase of the town's property.
So we'd be basically going towards uncharted territory if we did this?
Well, I mean,
Yes.
again, yes, we've never done this before where we've bought the property and then given an easement.
Right.
But it
We
would-
bought properties with easements in the
Easements on-
past, but we've never bought it and then given the easement.
Exactly.
Okay.
Just to follow up, on the properties that we bought with easements, does the land trust provide any stewardship as they're proposing with this property?
It's not as formalized.
It's not as formalized.
No, it's not. But the land trust does look at these properties too, but it's not. This would have a very specific thing that they're supposed to do and report on it.
Okay. And we're not necessarily making a decision today. This is just more of a discussion and for us to maybe talk about at our next town council.
I guess my thought would be either consensus that we have an agenda item with the conservation easement on it or not, based on what this is. But that's, again, if you need more information or wherever you guys want to go.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
So I don't remember what date it was, but when the land trust was here presenting to us, I thought they raised a lot of valid concerns, and I would say that at that point I was leaning towards seeing the positives of this conservation easement. I heard them say, their main concern is that while we may feel very strongly if we sit up here that we're not going to go back on any kind of developing or taking that land from open space, the way things are set up now, that is a possibility, and it may be a very unlikely possibility, but it's there, and we don't know in generations from now how the town is going to change and needs for land for development, and so this would be a way of protecting it. And the way I can kind of justify the issue with, well, taxpayers, Farmington taxpayers paid money for this to be open space, is that this easement actually allows it to be guaranteed open space indefinitely, which we don't technically have now. So I would lean towards supporting this, but I think there are enough concerns on both sides that it's definitely a tricky issue.
I don't know. Go ahead.
I think Bruce mentioned maybe getting some feedback from the town attorney about what we may want to put in here for more restrictions just to protect the town in certain areas.
Can I just, 2 things, and I think what you've stated and what the land trust stated is absolutely correct, but one of the things that I do want people to remember, where we've said that we haven't done that, where we keep on saying we haven't taken our open space and have turned it into commercial development, but we have taken open space and have done different things with it, and that we've swapped it for different types of open space. We've done different things with the open space. So again, giving someone else our right, that again, we'd have to get permission from the state to do that, but now we'd have to get permission from the state and the land trust to do that. And we have done different things throughout time where we've swapped open space property. I think the most recent time we've done it was with the Krell property with Miss Porter's school. We swapped land on the meadow for the land up by the treatment plant. So again, we have done different things, and again, giving up your property right is something that I think is, something that's a difficult decision. You are giving it not just for saying that you're going to give it up to change it not to open space. You're saying that if we ever needed that property for something else, and we could say we're going to give that property for open space if we can take this property for something else. So again, there's both sides of it. And yeah, so.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Kathy, when we've swapped land in the past, have we gone back to the voters to get approval for swapping land that the
No.
voters approved that we've, so if the voters see intrinsic value in this specific piece of property, because presumably when the town acquired this property, there was some intrinsic value in this piece of property. Was this one that was acquired without, just through normal land acquisition processes, or was it a referendum for this parcel?
Like the Miss Porter's one, again, probably was through our referendum with the lump sum for open space.
Right, but for this particular parcel, was just the lump sum, or was this a specific parcel?
No, this wasn't.
this property?
Yeah, for this
No, this was an open space.
Oh, this
one.
was-
Right, thank
Open
you.
space,
Okay.
yeah.
So I understand the concerns of residents about this is limiting the town's rights, but I also think the current town residents have intrinsic interest in this parcel remaining open space. So yes, we've swapped before, but then if we swap, then it's not this parcel that's remaining open space as compared to others. So I see both sides of that argument. That's what I'm trying to say.
And yes, go ahead.
It's interesting because as the town manager brought up swapping land, and most times when we get approvals to purchase land, there's a lump sum and we buy acreage. So when there is a swap, we're keeping acreage, we're just moving from one place to the other. So it doesn't address a particular issue or a particular lot. The land trust's concern to us was, what if there was a council that came in that didn't value open space and wanted to give away this open space? We could also turn that around to the land trust and say, well, what if there was a very beneficial situation in town where we wanted to take this particular parcel and swap it for something else, and that particular land trust group at that point in time was not willing to have that discussion. So the same could be turned around against the land trust, what they were saying to us. The town could lose out on something very beneficial because that particular land trust group was not in favor of it. So it could work both ways.
And I guess I don't see, when you mentioned indefinitely, the property already, because of what the state has done, has the easement there. And so putting another easement, yes, it has another layer, but I think that from what I'm hearing out there and what I'm trying to sort out is that it truly is taking away the public or the public's interest and first right of refusal, if you want to say, for the property, to the land trust. The land trust then is, some of it was mentioned, they have the choice, not the town. So, and we know, as they know now, as they said, they know the council. We're certainly all here for open space, and we value that in our town. And we don't know the future of the land trust as well, and the many years down the road. But the piece that I highlighted a couple of things in the letter to Kathy, to the town manager, the letter from the land trust, and one was that it's part of their mission is acquiring open space for the benefit of current and future town residents. And they acquire a lot of space through trusts and through wills, but the town is actually acquiring this open space by paying for it through the dollars of either a referendum, which we had, or open space by one referendum for one piece of property, or referendum for a number that is for open space. Maybe it's $3 million, and then the land trust and the council are entrusted to do that. And I think we have the same goals in the town to desire to designate the space as protected and unavailable for future development. That's something that we as a town, that's why it's open space. We have an interest in the preservation and protection. We believe in that. That's why we're here, and that's why we want to conserve the property. So I just wonder if this is why we have to have the easement, which restricts the town, and why we can't do this, as I said before, as just a partnership in helping one another out without having that layer. So I'm concerned about a violation of the public trust, because the public is the one who's bought this property. And as I said, from some of the people that I've heard out there that are concerned. So the state actually compensates us, whereas the town, land trust does not, obviously. Bruce, go ahead.
I was just going to say that when I think of an easement, there's a value to it, and I think and I want to protect the town and the town residents as much as possible. So I don't know if all of us have a consensus here to see what the town attorney would have proposed language if we did go with an easement, because they're recommending that the land trust is recommending that they would do this stewardship. And I'm making this assumption here. What if they did it for the first 10 years and then all of a sudden they're like, well, the land trust doesn't exist anymore. So that's where I'm struggling with. I would like to, and I know we talked about having the town attorney kind of look at that and kind of give us some more guidance. I'm stuck with that decision. Until I have all the facts in front of me, I couldn't make a decision today.
So where does that leave us with,
Do we even have questions to give to the town manager to consider this, or do we just want to hear more from the town attorney? I'm not sure where we're at right now either.
what am I hearing? You want to hear more from the town attorney? Is that the?
I would like to hear from the town attorney of, if the land trust doesn't follow through on their commitment, what are the steps or the actions? Because we represent the residents. So land trust is saying that they would do one thing. They want to put this extra easement on here because they're concerned of future council members. Well, maybe the residents could be concerned on the land trust as well. I'm not saying that they're going anywhere, but what would that look like?
Not everybody's everywhere forever. So.
That is true. What does that look like? And to me, I would think that we would have to protect our residents and the town of what we're doing. And if that is not possible and the land trust committee is not agreeable to that, then my decision would probably be something different versus just granting them something. Today, what happens with people that if a neighbor comes and asks to put an easement on, or the state of Connecticut asks to put an easement on, they either compensate or give you something for it. They're giving us something, but then if they break it, what's our recourse?
Right.
Not to say that they're going to break it.
Right. I think one of the things is, I think that, again, that the town attorney said that we can definitely have that. So I guess the question really is if that's the thing, is that do we want to try to, the question is that who is going to be, how are you going to come up with the agreement with the land
Right.
trust on it? And do we spend the time and negotiate with the land trust about what would be acceptable to them and then bring that back? Because we can do it. It's just a question of, can we agree with the land trust, and I think the simple things, if the land trust doesn't exist, I think that's an easy one for the attorney. We could, say something along those lines. But say, they have this conservation easement and they don't fulfill their obligation. Who is deciding that they haven't fulfilled their obligation? What then is the ramifications, and we have to come up with an agreement that we then would put in the easement. And we can absolutely do that, but it's going to take some time and work with the attorney. So I think that would be the next step with the attorney, because I'm not sure what else the attorney can tell us other than that we have to work with the land trust to come up with what the parameters are going to be if they don't fulfill their obligation.
Yes.
One other question, Kathy, that I would probably ask for the town attorney is something Nancy raised. What happens if we find out that there's something on the property that needs to be addressed and the town can't, or?
Well, I think we have that, meaning that one of the things that I felt very strongly about at the very beginning is that even though they do have the conservation easement, they don't have rights to tell us that we have to get something done on the property, meaning that, so if they come to us and say, you have to cut down that tree because of this, we
Right,
don't
no,
have to.
no, my question is more from a legal liability standpoint. If
Oh.
we find out there's a tree overhanging a trail,
Okay.
and we now know there's a tree overhanging
Okay.
a trail.
All right, I got it.
Could they sue the town
Could.
because we don't do it?
Or if someone gets injured,
Right.
what's the
What's the
town's
recourse?
Okay.
liability?
Yeah, okay, I understand. I can do that.
And what if there is no land trust? That's what
Yeah,
what you brought up, Bruce, if we have an easement and someone is we're part of this easement and all of a sudden someone takes over the land trust in a way that is not the way it's set up now. I mean, I don't know how you can gear that in the future.
Okay, so I think those two questions we could definitely get answers to without starting to negotiate with the land trust. Would you like me to come back with responses of those two? And then maybe we could, if we were going to take it to the next step, then we could take it to the next step after that?
I think those are two good questions. I'm fine with getting those answers. I would also add in there just, if there's a dispute, if the town says you didn't do something and they say they did, can the town attorney, do they have any experience in how that would be resolved so that can?
Well, that
can be
still
built
goes
into
to,
that
yeah, that
somehow.
still kind of goes to the bigger issue that we'd have to negotiate because, it's their rights too. So we're going to have to negotiate like the dispute and how, again, that's where I think we're going to struggle with is who's the judge and jury on.
Exactly, yeah. I wouldn't even know what the starting point is
Yeah.
of that negotiation, per se.
Would it be the council, be the judge and jury?
I don't know that because if we have an easement, it could go to the state.
Got it.
Yeah.
It
Well,
may not be the council.
and they may be okay with that, except that it's the sort of the same thing if that the council that's there in 35 years is not really as supportive of land acquisition stuff. They may be a strong jury on this way, or maybe a strong, so you could see, again, where I think it gets a little bit complicated. You have a committee of two land trust people and a town person, and who is the judge and jury on because you really would be telling the land trust that we're getting rid of your easement, we're taking away that right because of something. So.
CJ?
The more we discuss this, I think the more I lean against giving any type of easement to the land trust for a simple reason that the benefit to us, and I think Bruce said this earlier, is potentially saving a few dollars from the town where they're doing some work for us. We're already talking about giving a number of questions to our attorney, and we're discussing what happens if there's a dispute along the way as to how things go, which would mean more questions to our attorney. Attorneys are a lot more expensive than somebody who clears brush. So those couple of hours with the attorney would cost a lot more, I think, than anything we would benefit from on a cost basis from this. So just, if we're taking a poll here, I'm now firmly against doing it. I love the land trust. They do tremendous work, but I don't think this benefits the town overall.
And I have to say, I mean, we've always, the land trust does great work for the town, and this has nothing to do with that. It's just the rights here of the citizens here that I'm concerned about. And we're great partners with the land trust in what we do now. And anyway. Other comments?
If I remember correctly, we tried something and I don't even know if it was at the point that this new council was operating, but there was something about a license agreement. We tried that, and that was kind of a compromise, and the land trust was not interested in that.
So far.
And what were the major differences?
Well, my understanding, and someone correct me if I'm because I'm not an attorney, but my understanding of the difference is the license agreement is basically the town gives the land trust permission to come on our property and do various things with the property, with our permission, and they can do that. But they don't own it, they don't have any rights to the property. They don't have any rights to the property. And there's no protection on the property.
And that's not really what they're looking for here. They're looking for that longevity, the protection. And, yeah.
Well, it's not giving them authority other than to come on and partner with us as a town to go over the land and fix it or monitor it. But it didn't give them authority over, well, with the council. So, I mean, I don't know. Well, I don't know. We seem to have a mixed bag, yeah.
Well, I always appreciate CJ's comments, although I think that the value of what we spend for the property and for, on behalf of the town, I think there's a value on it based on whatever it costs from a lawyer to make sure that we're doing the right decision. So I respect that, although I don't think asking our town attorney a few additional questions with the amount of money that we spent for the property isn't not being frugal or wasteful, I guess.
No, and that's not, I'm sorry, that's not what I was at all saying. What I was saying is, right now, we're asking some questions. I think that's totally legitimate, but we're also bringing up another number of questions that could come forth in the future. And if we're talking about, as you mentioned earlier, one of the benefits being saving money, I don't think in the long run, if we have any of these discussions with any topic going forward, and we're asking future questions, every one question we ask the attorney is worth many, many hours of someone doing work on that piece of property. So it's not so much these questions, because we're trying to decide right now what we're going to do if we're going to have this easement or not. It's more, my concern is the future questions that will come up when we're talking about who's going to arbitrate a dispute. It's more those questions. Yes, we spent a fair amount of money on this property, as we do quite often in town on land trust and for open space. And that's all money well spent. I think the town, that's always listed as one of the things townspeople enjoy the most, is having open space. So it's not that or these initial questions. I'm thinking of the future questions.
So I'm still leaning towards getting those questions, because I think Patty brings up a good point in terms of our liability. If we did consider this, what would I think that would be my main concern, is the liability if we did consider this. Because if they're reporting back something and someone gets hurt, the town's getting sued. That's where I stand.
I guess the question would be, how is that different? How could that be different in the future versus what if something happened now? How would that change our liability?
Well, I think part of it is that your liability is a lot more if you're aware of a situation that is taking place. So if the land trust is up there and they give us a list of different things and the town decides that they're not going to take care of those different things, then, then I think our liability goes up higher.
Which in return could, a lot of more work for the town to do and expenditure. So I think it's good to know that answer, so.
Okay, so do we want you to get those answers from the attorney of what it would be and bring those answers back to us at the next meeting?
Is that what we want?
Yep.
Who would?
Okay.
I will.
Just those questions.
Yep, I will do that. Okay. Okay, and that's it for my manager's report.
Well, can I have a motion for the manager's report?
Move to approve?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay. Let's see what's
Appointments.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I have 4 appointments. The first one is L3. I move that Ruth Groby be appointed to the Human Relations Commission for a 2-year term and ending on June 30th, 2020.
Second?
Any questions? All in favor, say aye.
Sorry, who said the second?
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
The next one is L6. I apologize, Zelman. It's the last name. I move that Zelman Nabavsky,
Nakamowski.
I have the spelling for you, to be appointed to Human Relations Commission for a 2-year term and ending June 30th, 2020.
Second?
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
Okay, next one is L8. I move that Diane Hacker be appointed to the North Central Regional Mental Health Board, Inc., for a balance of 2 years term beginning immediately and ending September 30th, 2019.
Hacker?
Yes.
Second?
Second?
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions?
And one more, L12. I move that Patricia Bagdigian Bertero be appointed to the Plainville Area Cable TV Advisory Council for a 2-year term and ending June 30th, 2020.
Second?
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Got it?
Yes.
Any old business? New business? N1.
I move to award a contract for the purchase of one Jacobson HR 600 wide area rotary mower to MTE Turf Equipment Solution, Inc. of West Henrietta, New York, at a purchase price of $59,883.23.
Second?
This is to purchase a wide area rotary mower for rough mowing operations at our golf course. It would be a replacement mower, which is 22 years old, and funds were approved for this in the 2018-19 capital budget.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N2.
I move to award a contract for a purchase of one John Deere 310 SL backhoe loader to the W.I. Clark Company of Wallingford, Connecticut, at a purchase price of $111,295.71.
Second?
Any questions? Oh, Kathy.
This is a backhoe loader for use by the Highway and Ground Division during their daily operations, and it's to replace a 1996 backhoe loader, and the funds were approved in the 18-19 capital budget.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N4. N4.
And 3, right?
N3.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Nope. I move to award a contract for the purchase of one 2019 International Model HV5007 heavy-duty cab and chassis to Nutmeg International Trunk Incorporated of Hartford, Connecticut, at a purchase price of $87,943.
Second?
This was to purchase a heavy-duty cab that will be outfitted to be used as a heavy dump truck by the Highway and Grounds Division. This unit will replace a 1995 heavy-duty dump truck, and funds were approved in the 18-19 capital budget.
Questions?
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Kathy, I know the capital budget was $210,000 for the heavy-duty dump truck. Is this just a portion? So this is just the cab and chassis, and then there'll be more that
yes.
we'll be approving later?
Exactly.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Any other questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? N4.
Okay, so this is a long one, guys. Bear with me.
And everyone has a new motion at their places.
Okay, I move the Farmington Center Village Committee will consist of the following voting members: 2 town council members, 1 member of the Farmington Historic Society, 1 member from the Farmington Historic District Commission, 1 member from the Farmington Village Green and Library Association, 1 member from the Farmington Economic Development Commission, and 3 members that are either a Farmington Village business owner or Farmington Village resident. And the Farmington Village business owner or resident will each serve a 4-year term beginning immediately and ending June 30th of 2022. And the appoint the following members: Bruce Charette, Town Council member and chair; Nancy Nickerson, Town Council member; Portia Corbett, Farmington Historic Society; John Renahan, Farmington Historic District Commission; Michael Gorski, Farmington Village Green and Library Association representative; Brian Connolly, Economic Development Commission representative; Sarah Jean Willett, Farmington Village resident; Liz Sanford, Farmington Village resident; and Kevin Ray, Farmington Village business owner. And the following non-voting members: Kathleen Egan, Town Manager; William Warner, Town Planner; Rose Ponte, Economic Development Director. We have the Human Relation, which is going to be determined. And then Betty Coy Kendall as Town Historian. And the committee will focus on the Farmington Village study area, which includes the Farmington Center commercial area along Route 4, Mountain Spring Road to Farmington River, the Farmington Historic District, and adjacent properties not currently in the district, and the 3 gateways into the village, beginning at the Farmington River, the intersection of Route 4, Mountain Spring Road, and the intersection of Route 10 and Scott Swamp Road. And the charge of the committee is as follows, and there's 5 of them. So the first one: the committee will develop a recommendation to the town council regarding the future use of the Parsons property, including ownership, control, and use. Second, if the town council determines the ownership is in the best interest of the town of Farmington, the committee will identify steps necessary to transfer the property from the state of Connecticut to the town of Farmington in the most expeditious and cost-effective manner, and report back to the town council on their recommendation. 3, if the property is transferred to the town of Farmington, the committee will follow up on the successful planning workshops conducted in 2015, review the findings, and listen to the community to understand the types of use for the Parsons property which would enhance the village, and report back to the town council on its findings. 4, based on those findings and direction from the town council, the committee will conduct a process to identify a preferred developer to partner with the town to secure and develop the Parsons property in a manner of which complements the historic buildings and the historic district, and defines the most prominent entry into Farmington as a place of high quality, beauty, and character. 5, the committee will recommend the preferred developer to the town council for approval. Based on the approval, the preferred developer will work with the committee on the proposal, which would then proceed through the town planning and zoning, and subsequently be approved by the Town Planning and Zoning Commission. And the committee will recommend quality of life enhancements, sidewalks, street trees, landscaping, street furniture, historic markers, ways, finding, signage, and universal design improvements for the Farmington Village Center study area, and to complete the various aspects of this charge, the committee will frequently conduct public participation, community outreach to ensure that the community is engaged in the process. And based on the community outreach, and the committee is encouraged to propose other recommendation to the town council or the town planning and zoning commission for Farmington study area based on the information granted.
Second.
Questions?
I didn't quite get that. Could you read it?
Thank you, CJ.
Madam Chair?
Go ahead. Yes.
I think this committee is really important. Overall, I like how we're setting it up. I think we've picked a good group. In a perfect world, this obviously affects the village the most, and I see why we have a lot of people from the village there. I think in a perfect world, we'd have a little bit more from other parts of town, but that being said, I'm supporting this committee and setting it up and voting yes for it.
Thank you. Other comments? Bruce?
Yeah, I just want to add on to Paul's, when Nancy and I and Kathy and worked on this committee, we made sure that we put in committees like the Historic Society, Historic District Commission, the Economic Development, and some of these individuals may or may not live in the Farmington Village. So that's a good call out, Paul. So we wanted to make sure that this committee reflects our community, and there are some individuals that may be from Unionville and different districts, voting districts as well. So we think that this committee will also evolve. So as people move off of their certain committees, we would have to reappoint individuals. And that was one main reason why we kind of put the town residents and business owners kind of together to allow us to, after 4 years, to relook at it. You know, do we need more business owners versus residents? So.
Any other comments? Yes.
Chair, and I just would hope that town residents would participate and, continue communicating ideas and concerns and come to meetings and keep up on the progress. I think this is a really exciting process and continuation of a lot of work and hours put in by the initial Gateway committee, and it's good to see it move forward.
Other comments? Yes, and I'll just say that there was a concern that there was a lot of work done a few years ago with a lot of people in the town. Over 400 people came to Charette's over 3 or 4 days, and it was a wonderful experience. The town's citizens were involved and engaged in what's going to happen in their town, and that's why it was so important for us to make sure that that's going to be part of this plan, part of the project, part of moving forward, as well as the continuation of having public meetings where people we want, expect, hope for as many people from the community, again, to come out and to talk to us about what they would like in the Village Green, that whole village area. So we look forward to a lot of public participation again. And we have a lot of work to do, and it's wonderful to be on this ground floor, or almost the second ground floor of putting this together. So it's really an exciting time for this. Anyway, Kathy.
I just wanted to mention 2 things. One, I don't think Mr. Hendrickson is still in the audience, but one of the things he did ask is that if this was going to be over by the CVS Plaza over on Main Street. If you all have your map, that is the entranceway, and so that is the area that we're going to be looking at. And if you see on page 2, which Bruce read, about the quality life enhancements, sidewalks, streetscapes, and things like that, these are some of the things that he has talked about, and so I think that this committee is going to be involved in some of that, and that's right in that area that he's been talking about. So I just wanted to mention that too.
Any other questions or comments? And thank you, the map is really helpful too to have
Great.
Okay, all those in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Great. Okay. Bruce, 5.
Yep. I move to accept the Unionville Historic District Study Committee report and to hold a public hearing to amend the ordinance to include the additional properties on September 11th, 2018 at 7 p.m. in the Town Council chambers.
Second.
So basically, what you're doing just here is accepting the report, which is included, and setting a public hearing on it. That would be to add additional properties into the district, and those property owners have been notified, and everyone seems very much willing to be part of it, and at the next meeting, you'll have a presentation about it.
Any questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, next, item 6.
Okay, I move to cancel the August 14, 2018 regular Town Council meeting.
Second.
Any questions? All
Are
those,
we allowed to go a full month without meeting?
yes, we are. There are a lot of little meetings, so that's a
I
lot of
will remind you
committees.
that there's not no meetings.
But we need break. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, and 7.
Okay, I move to approve the following property tax refunds totaling $2,481.79.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions.
And if we could just pause for 1 second, because Bruce and I haven't talked about it. We're doing this one, and Patty, are we doing the land today?
I don't have
So
it.
it's just that tonight, Bruce, thank you.
Sure. Okay. You ready?
Yep.
Okay, I move to executive session to discuss matters concerning collective bargaining. In attendance in this executive session shall be limited to members of the town council and the town manager.
Second.
And the assistant manager?
No,
Oh, it's not this
no,
one.
no, it's the other one.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions. Okay, thank you. Okay.
Nancy, I want to explain to the people that
Oh, yes. We now are going to have executive session, and that means just the council is here.
So you're
you all have
excused.
to-
You're free to go.
excused.